So, Aly Khalifa, he is the owner, product and engineer director, and Eisenhower Fellow. He comes to the design profession from a bipolar education at NCSU in mechanical engineering and product design. His goal is to find the balance of both these disciplines in each project challenge. Aly's career is chiefly centered around Gamel Design, a firm he started in 1995. His work experience previously included working for the NCDOT, wind tunnel of the US EPA, Performance Bicycle, and he was a teacher at NCSU's School of Design. Aly started Gamel in the interest of furthering the synthesis of creative design with creative engineering into a field called invention development. Their specialty in advanced design, engineering, and development of sporting goods accessories has led them to many clients including Nike, Trek, Bausch & Lomb, and outdoor products. This has further developed into partnerships between Gamel Design and Asian manufacturers. Aly travels heavily to Asia to realize Gamel's projects that are produced in mass market quantities. Together with a handful of other professionals, Aly and his wife started Designbox, right down the street, in 2001. Designbox is a creative collaborative located in Raleigh, North Carolina, with members honing their creative skills at weekly meetings. Designbox members represent some of the finest talent in the area and are responsible for curating monthly shows in their prominent downtown gallery. Designbox has sprung a number of community projects in which Aly has led facilitation sessions. These have ranged from sculpting undesirable landfills into fun urban parks to rethinking Raleigh's own self-image. The latter eventually led to the creation of SparkCon, which kicked off last night, and I'm sure we'll hear about. The Triangle's first creative conference that enabled more than 30,000 people in the Triangle area to stake its claim as the creative hub of the South. Aly is also a cellist and singer in a variety of Raleigh music projects, including Dear Enemy and Semicolon. Most of the rest of his time is dedicated to completely overly ambitious landscaping ideas. So without further ado, Aly Khalifa.
Hey, I'm really honored by your presence on this early creative morning. I had a creative evening last night. Happy to be here. I'm sorry, Matt, for slide advance, is there a clicker, or did I just use this? Okay. So here we go. So over the past several years, I've been doing a bunch of different projects. I've been involved, as Matt said, with that ridiculous bio. Thank you very much for that. A lot of different projects, doing a lot of different things, and with a lot of people. And there tends to be things that I like to do, and things maybe not so much. And the things that I do like to do, I've been trying to figure out what is the common threads of it. And recently, and I really have to credit my partner in life, Aly Khalifa, for really being the one who's like helping me prove out and think through what we're doing. And together we are doing all these projects together. And ultimately, I think it seems that inventive culture became this one theme that we sort of see is happening in our lives. And it seems to be the things that we like. That inventive culture somehow captures the spirit of all these different bizarre, seemingly unrelated things that I'm about to show you. So Gamil Design is my firm. It seems a lot easier, since it's my middle name, to say Gamil than Khalifa. So there you have it. And it turns out that if you are trying to check your Gmail account, about 13 million a month are landing on our site. We've been given so much credit about it too. People are like, yeah, it's genius, Gamil.com, total genius. Like, it's thousands and thousands-year-old word in Arabic. A little bit before Gmail. I'll just show you quickly some of the things I've been doing, and maybe I think there's a few different lessons that we've learned about inventive culture over time, and I just want to go through a few of them. I designed eyewear about 6 collections, I think, for Bausch & Lomb. Led this brand called SunCloud. It was like this big snowboarding brand. Still exists, but now it's an Italian-owned brand as opposed to Bausch & Lomb. But it was really fun. We're making these like really high-end lenses in Japan with these 13 layers of stuff that went in to make these polarized glass. This is what Maui Jim now uses and stuff like that. We were really pioneering some of this stuff. So these lenses were coming from Japan, and then I was going to Italy and making all these frames. They're really fun to do, and it was a really sobering experience because as I was making a lot of stuff in Asia at the time, it seemed like I would just show up to a meeting with calipers. I have these digital calipers that travel with me everywhere. I'm a total geek. It's like the new slide rule. Anyway, so I have these digital calipers, and I would go to these meetings and see if things are working or why don't things fold right or whatever, and that's when I become that engineer guy trying to make sure that the design's going to work. And as I started going to Italy, I realized that actually a lot of the best ideas were on the shop floor. That when I talked to the painter, the guy who's actually painting frames by spraying these pieces of plastic, he actually had better ideas than I did about like a really beautiful finish. And after a while, I started, instead of showing up with technical drawings and calipers when I went to Italy, I started showing up with like sketches and ideas. And I would sit down with really guys on the factory floor and start talking about what can we do. You guys, like there's so much creativity in that blood of the Italian manufacturers that I realized let's leverage that as much as we can. So I started talking about how I really love the way that vines would grow around trees, and we were able to take some equipment, take a spring machine, and completely modify it and change it to sort of make this this serpentine path out of wire, something they had never done, something I had never done. We actually really had to change machines to do it, and they loved it. They were so stoked about it, and it was a really nice manufacturing experience. It made me realize that, okay, maybe some great ideas are outside of this noggin. Another collaboration that ended up being kind of interesting, not more than interesting, compelling and a part of my life, was talking to Rich and Ty. Rich works with counterculture, and Ty became a business partner. They asked me to design a teapot at the third place because they kept breaking their Bodum pots. And we started searching the solution. Why? Why are they breaking? And it turned out to be all about the bus tray and how people put stuff in the bus tray, and then things get broken. And after that, they tried T-balls, and T-balls make it for 3 times through the bus tray before they're so dented up and broken that like loose leaf tea is coming all through your tea. And as we started going through all that, and then there's all this stuff about hygiene, and you're handling money, and you got to be able to operate this thing with one hand. And oh, by the way, tins of tea are filled vertically, and that's the way the leaves are oriented. So if there's just some way, instead of cutting across the leaves and destroying the leaves, is there any way to jab something in and pull it back out? And it was really great, and it was a really interesting experience for me to realize that actually the best design ideas were in someone who really understands the problem. And just having someone articulate clearly what the actual problem was led to an interesting design. I just had to start telling them, let's pretend teapot is not in the room. Let's talk about what the real thing is. And as a result, we ended up inventing this tea stick, and it's actually kicked off a company and a product line. We actually are now doing a coffee thing, Kickstarter in 2 weeks. But it was pretty compelling to all of a sudden realize that just by listening to someone and paying attention to them by sitting in a coffee shop, and we only wanted to make 50 of them for their coffee shop, but all of a sudden we have a business selling these things all over the world. There's some other interesting things that happened too in these collaborations, or at least what I think was leading to some of our inventions, because we were developing patents with all this stuff, and a water bottle cage. Okay, I mean this is like the engineering side of design, I think, but I was really excited about designing a water bottle cage. The one they had was called an Ejector. And so what happened, you'd hit a bump, and then this thing would act like a little diving board, and your water bottle goes shooting out. And after a while, we realized actually the problem was that the bottle just gets crooked in there. So if you keep the bottle from getting crooked, it'll never launch. So rather than having these like Gorilla Grip things, we could do that, and then we could take all these materials out of the eyewear industry that I was working so much in, which is nylon 12, and I could make these super really thin lines and not have barely any structure on it at all. You just had to keep it from getting twisted. And so as a result, it became much lighter, and then the way we engineered it became 40% cheaper because of the way we molded it. And then it was on Lance's, well, I was going to say wins for the Tour de France, but I guess I should have put the mystery substance in the bottle cage. And I think another really interesting one, this one was sort of the anti-collaboration and made me realize the kind of work I don't want to do. But I did get to hang out with the Trek Pro team for a little while, which is an interesting experience to be in a log cabin in New Hampshire. And these Norba National guys, like their legs are freaking like that. And there's a lot of bodily smells coming out of those guys, and you're all cramped together. But my job was to hang out with these guys and find out, okay, what is going to be the ultimate pro glove? We want the ultimate mountain biking pro glove. And they all looked at me and said, we don't want a freaking glove. Why would I put anything between me and my bike? Tell me why. I was like, oh, because you can get hurt. He's like, yeah, I bleed, and then I'm okay. So what? Next. I said, because we got to sell a glove. So anyway, it was really interesting trying to figure out what's the least glove I can put out there that would be like what a pro guy would love versus the brand expectations of selling a glove. And I started thinking about like the cloth grips and other things that I've done and how to get really good grip with high breathability. And all of a sudden I realized that what the material I was thinking of, I had seen in shoes a lot. I've designed a lot of bicycle shoes. So I actually put shoe materials on this glove, which is this grippy part. And it's tackline. It's like this really cheap glove, but like it's just like it's made to grip to your sock. And it had ended up the same kind of performance constraints that people were sort of talking about in this in the pro team. And so I just put shoe materials on this, and everyone thought it was like this revolution or whatever. And to me, it was just sort of cross-pollinating these ideas that that material had been around for more than 20 years, tack liner from Storenzi or New York. And you never know where an invention can really come from. There's been some other collaborations we've done at Camille. One of them is working with Stefan Sagmeister. I spoke at a conference in Qatar with him, and we really hit it off. Later on, Stefan asked if I could help him with this Villecheck Award. He designed this brilliant award. It's called the Villecheck Prize, and it's for people who are in the United States that are immigrants or not yet maybe naturalized, but are demonstrating exceeding amounts of creativity. And every year there's a couple people that are chosen for it. So we've done this award now, I think, 6 or 7 years with Stefan. I think the first one, maybe there was a durability issue. And so Stefan asked if I would kind of step in and help. And we ended up doing all these crazy mathematical algorithms to help make sure that as your name, which would be in here as a winner of the award, doesn't become infinitely thin and infinitely fragile. So we ended up having these really interesting math things that are happening to make something so simple actually happen. And bizarre part is now this award wins awards. And then Stefan and I then were able to start doing a couple other things. So one of this was nominated for a Grammy. This was David Byrne and Brian Eno when they did their album together. We did a little special edition thing, which includes like a placebo pill and a die that you can roll that has some lyrics on it. And my favorite part is when you lift up the lid, you actually hear David Byrne's footsteps walking around his house. A big door slam. And it was really interesting to start getting involved in this stuff and realize that, okay, in this whole limited edition market, we can actually do really creative stuff and do collaborative stuff, and we can start thinking about how we're making it as well, like what parts of it we can do. So a lot of this was assembled locally. And that really led us to this realization that the best work, as proud as I am of our team at Camille Design, our best stuff's coming from working with people that are outside Camille. And that also started affecting the way we started thinking about not just who our clients were, but also who our collaborators in terms of our talent was. And the question was, well, how do you nurture that? How do you nurture collaboration? How do I make my design firm even better with these like diverse collaborations? And so the best thing we could come up with was forming Designbox. And we thought if we are a creative agency surrounded by other creative agencies, that then those collaborations can start to happen a little bit more naturally. So we're in our third Designbox, and basically we've got a little gallery, we've got workstations, and then we've got storage mass and a little meeting room. And we're really excited about our newest space. We moved in there January. We're 1 block away. Now we're 2 blocks away from here. And Designbox represents here, by the way. I see a lot of Designbox here. So just a smattering of photos from different spaces that we've had, but we've used it as a way to sort of collect the community and invite the community into our space, actually invite them into our office, let people see what we're doing, have our computers out, our projects out, let people start making connections with us as we're doing it. So being part of First Friday, our original gallery, I think we're one of 4 galleries that we're doing First Friday. Now we're one of 30-something galleries. I can't even keep up. And that interchange of having people in there has really led to some new relationships, which have been great for us. One of the things that we're really excited about now is through this this unbelievable growth in creativity in this area, we're starting to see a lot of these local brands pop up. And people that we've seen say they were going to do something are doing something now, Matt included. And we're seeing just a whole bunch of different brands that are popping up. So anyway, we're representing them now as a retail shop. So rather than being a pure art gallery, which was what we were doing before, now we can actually start being a design shop, which seems to fit our mission a little bit better, and it's helped us pass on the information that we're learning with our clients to then actually have them in the retail shop and vice versa. And it's becoming this really nice two-way conversation. And it's, to sit every day in a shop or be working on something, you're thinking about how many units you're making and deliveries and all that, and then someone's asking you about something in the retail shop is a nice mind bender every day, and always sort of drives home for the whole staff. Why are we here? What are we doing? And it's like you actually get to be a part of it. And something I think has been really healthy for us. But we still have some fun shows like pole dancing kitties. One of the cool things that came out of it was Clark Whittington is in Winston-Salem, and he's been doing these really cool projects about taking cigarette machines and selling art with them. So ArtemAt is this project, and we actually we partnered with Seesaw Studio and got an NEA grant to start working with Clark and doing then some projects with some kids in Durham to actually have them start mass producing art that would be able to be put into a cigarette machine. And it was a really interesting experience. First of all, we were working with one guy who knows a lot about cigarette machines, which is fun. But then also working with Seesaw and how these students are thinking about art and what is their art worth and how do you make it so that it can do all the mechanical things of getting through a machine, but also it's enjoyable to do and it means something in terms of art. And it was a really rewarding experience. And so ultimately what we started realizing that through all the Designbox members we've had and people that have been a part of it, the ones that we like, have always been community-minded. And we had all these initial really formal rules about Designbox, about when we're going to meet and how we're going to sign these mutual non-disclosure agreements together. And we had a lot of formality to sort of create this family, which I was just talking about with Mark. And after a while, when you become the family, you maybe don't say please and thank you as much. Your family, right? Just give me the salt. So we've seen so first it's sort of about how do you build that culture, but as the culture starts to develop, you have to keep changing the rules. So there's not one magic set of rules that are there, but the one magic element is everyone has to care about the family meal, or you have to be community minded. You have to really enjoy that aspect of it. And if you can do that and not be focused just on the rule or just of what am I getting out of this for my business, and you actually say, I really enjoy developing my community, those have been the people that have been just super rewarding to work with and have led to a lot of these cool projects. So that led to more projects. One of the first ones that really got Beth and I super excited about the possibility of what you can do in Raleigh excuse me, was this project called Keep Abreast. And I was in Munich at a trade show and had seen someone doing this project about breast cancer awareness to let people know that they need to do early screening. You need to screen regularly, you need to screen early. And it really came from snowboard culture, which is sort of what I was working with. But a very important hero within snowboarding had died of breast cancer, and a lot of people didn't know what to do, and they sort of came back and said, we need to get this issue onto the front page. People need to know about it, and they need to not be scared to say breast cancer. And so a friend of ours had gone through a whole breast cancer regimen, and we just didn't know what to do, but we were very touched by it and decided that we wanted to reach out to Keep Abreast. So we actually reached out to Shani Jo Darden, who started Keep Abreast, and allowed us to basically franchise her system. She flew in for a few different times, and we became a Keep Abreast site. So it started off, I mean, that was actually on the News and Observer, so that was the first naughty picture. There might be more today based on last night's performance at SparkCon. But, and no, we're not peeking in the window on the outside. But it ended up being these 3 different communities that came together, one of which was women who were really concerned about this and said, I want to be a part of it, and they were casting themselves in plaster, and we had a whole regimen of how to do that to be safe and comfortable and all that. And then we had, once we assembled all our bus together, then we had all the artists come at once, and then they could basically choose live. So we'd had all these artists at one time deciding which ones they wanted to work with, which was some fun discussion. And what came out of it were some pretty fantastic pieces that really just sort of blow your mind, whether you're working with the inside or the outside, or how figurative or literal you can be. And it became amazing because now I think it was the biggest maybe Keep Abreast exhibit that happened. Shani Jo couldn't believe like the community that was here. She was living in San Diego and had done a lot of these, and was just really impressed by what's happening here. And meanwhile, the quality of the art was great. We had a silent auction in one night and raised 10 grand, which was great. And not only that, then these actually went on exhibit in a lot of different shops around town, including doctors' offices and things like that too. So we ended up having these 3 communities, people who were like doing the casting and talking to their whole group, which was a lot of health people. Then we had all these artists and the whole art community that was there. And then we had the whole retail community and how the whole retail community was talking about it or working with it. And we realized, wow, you can have a pretty big event if you ask a lot of people to do a part of it. Maybe a couple other things to talk about that we did as Designbox, and we have a couple collaborators in here who helped with this. One of which was when they were digging out the convention center, they wanted to put a few thousand, more than a few thousand, I think it's 250,000 cubic yards of dirt that was being dug out where the convention center is over on the Dick's property. And Thomas Crowder approached us because I live on Kirby Street near there, and he's like, "What do we do about this?" And I said, "Well, what's the plan? What are you gonna do with all this dirt? That's a lot of dirt." And well, we're gonna take out this giant pine forest and put 4.2 feet of dirt evenly across it. And it's like, well, that's maybe not so cool. Maybe there's another way of doing it. So like, what if we say yes to the dirt but no to that? And then we invite the whole community in to talk about how can we put this dirt however we want to. So within each table, and there's Diane Reeves, who's a Designboxer. Each one of the Designbox members took a table and facilitated groups. And these groups, following synectics theory, was made up of diverse individuals, including a bulldoze operator, people we had parents that were there, we had landscape designers, and we got this really diverse group. And it ended up leading to some really interesting things. This has been, I think, 2/3 built out, because I think some of the dirt ended up going to 540 in the end, so not all the dirt was required to go there. But we ended up being able to save all those trees. Nothing was done there. We had this big vantage peak up in the top. The soccer ball was built. One mother was talking about, hey, well, one son is playing soccer, the other one's always running away. Can we give him an incline to slow him down? Dump truck guy loved that idea. He goes, I can just drive in a circle and dump dirt? Awesome. And one of the other projects we did was working with City Plaza, which, it's so great now to do SparkCon and actually be in that space. One of the original concepts that came out of it was talking about these 4 towers that could just do a downward projection. I think ultimately we didn't have the budget to buy the projectors, but it's something I'm looking forward to see, that we can fill that whole downtown City Plaza with live projection. And with all the cool people that are doing like the digital motion showcase and stuff, we can actually have it be reactive, so things can swim away from you or towards you or anything like that. But this again was working with maybe about 130 people in the community and facilitating them to say, what should we do with our downtown square? So we've been really spoiled by, like, once we started to do things with the community, how much the community asked us to do more. And overall, what we realized through all these things, whether it's the Keep Abreast or whatever, it's like, you need the clear vision, but you need a loose structure. You need to have enough there that people can be creative, but you don't want a blank piece of paper, right? The blank piece of paper is really scary, but if I just scribble on it and give it to you and say, what is this, or draw on it, it's a lot easier. So you need that balance, and we find that again and again. But the vision has to be that thing that people can sort of get behind. So that means the vision has to be authentic and relative to everybody else, which brings us to the end of the world. So, okay, the way the story goes is that there were 7 people that show up to our neighborhood meetings on Kirby Street. And for the most part, I mean, you know, it's 27 homes, so that's a good percentage. But, you know, schedules and everything like that. So everyone else in the room had already been president, and I didn't want to be neighborhood president. And so they said, okay, well, it's your turn. I said, I'm moving to Italy, so sorry. And then the next year, it's like, well, you're still here. And I said something like, well, if I'm going to be neighborhood president, there's going to be a parade down the middle of the street. All in favor? Aye. I was like, oh. And so, and it's a great neighborhood. I love them all, but, you know, there's a little bit of like, how do I get these guys back, you know? So we've had 11 Kirby Derby days, but which included Bridezilla, and I have to really say that, you know, Carla Ray is one of my biggest inspirations of all time, because for year 1 we didn't know what to do, and she just looked at me. She goes, "Are there going to be clowns? You can have a parade. Are there going to be clowns?" I was like, "I don't know." She goes, "I hate clowns." So there's going to be clowns. And really, it was her like doing it, and the more she started talking about how much she hated clowns, there was actually like a clowning community here that started getting upset and started saying, well, we have to defend the clowns because Carla and her team are against the clowns. And so all of a sudden it was like, well, what do we do? And they started, it was like an escalation about these clown haters, the anti-clowns. And then you had like the protectors, which were the evil clowns. And so their principal job was to protect the good clowns. They didn't realize there was never going to be any good clowns and that they are actually the clowns. It ended up creating like this wonderful energy, and that was Kirby Derby 1. And since then, we then started having like these professional wrestling robots and things. And one of the things that we do is we do drag racing. So there's a heel requirement to that. And then after a few years, we decided to start adding soapbox derby type stuff. So we have all kinds of contraption and inventions of people racing. It's just one turn, but most people don't make it. And we also have some pine box stuff. And this has been really fun because, I mean, for a while it was like the kids were on the side and the adults were doing all the fun stuff. And after 11 years, we're 11 years older too, so now we're trying to reverse it so that we can just laugh at them falling and crashing. They have to be a little bit older until it feels appropriate, I think. But, and one of the funny things that happened is that one year we decided to say that on the 8th year that the 80s are enough. That was a Carla Ray brilliant. The 80s are enough. And so we decided to start, looking at Donkey Kong. And after we had created all these floats at Designbox down the street, we sort of went into that little parking lot behind and decided to celebrate with an adult beverage over at the Tiki Bar at Humble Pie. And we're sitting there and looking at it. It's like, this looks like a Donkey Kong set. some of the cast members are here today, so props to them. And it's amazing, it only takes about one beer and having props and having a realization, oh my God, this looks like a Donkey Kong set. To make that just in a few hours, and all of a sudden it was one of those YouTube, like we hit that threshold of enough, hits, so it was something, and all of a sudden we're being connected with all the sticky artists around the world, and animation lovers, and Donkey Kong aficionados. And I think the biggest thing we learned through Kirby Derby, which I don't present at many conferences because I'm always a little bit like, I don't know, there's enough interesting things that happen there. But I think it's really appropriate to talk about here because it was a huge realization that there is a value in play. And by really having that vision, like I talked about, and giving enough structure about there's going to be a drag race, there's going to be a parade, there's going to be these soapbox races and all that, that the creativity that came out, and this is something like, I've seen Beth come almost to tears just watching some of these floats show up. It's just, you can't believe the work and the effort and the creativity, everything that goes into these things. It's like, there's something there. There's something to harness there. And ultimately, that gave us the courage to try something else called SparkCon. And that there's the ability maybe to start taking play and start talking about it as being something that's important for the whole region. And that creativity can be exhibited a lot of times through play. So SparkCon's this weekend. There's some schedules over here if you guys want to do it. Year one, we were 250 people. We didn't really know how to organize it. We thought 250 people was awesome. We were so stoked. We sold out. Everyone's high-fiving. It's changed. It's grown a little bit since then. First, it was in Moore Square, and then it went on to Fayetteville Street. And next year, maybe we can get it down over here. And I think, maybe we're around 30 or 35,000 people this year. And we use an open source system to do this organizing, that each spark, it's sort of like a Wikipedia page, as long as you follow this basic parameter and that you're fair and you're open, and you have two people, one person's the planner, one person's the communicator, and we developed this whole DNA of of how you do it, that amazing things can happen. And we've been really, really pleased with what's happened. So after that, all these different sparks, that's just this year, how many different sparks we have. And it'll be 300 at least volunteers in the pre-planning, not to mention what's happening day of the festivals, more than 200 events and 1,700 performers. 1,700 creative people, right, actually putting themselves out there, and it's all volunteer. And it's an amazing thing. So now I'm getting the pleasure of speaking around the world about how to do this, and there's a lot of people wanting to let their creative people kind of come to the forefront and really take the baton and say, okay, this is the new development, creative development. We've talked a lot about economic development in these cities. People will now really want to start talking about creative development. And this has been really interesting for us. So I encourage all of you, there's so much to see at SparkCon. I don't even know half of what's going on, honestly. And I showed up at the last SparkCon meeting and someone asked who I was. I love it. So it's working. But there's one little vignette I wanted to talk about with SparkCon, which was, Joe Carnevale did the barrel monster. Maybe some of you guys know that, but he took some barrels and put together this little sculpture on Hillsborough Street, and it got busted down. All of a sudden, it was like he was in trouble. The police he was in trouble because this is vandalism. And then the barrel company was, contacted later. They're like, we would have given them the barrels. I mean, this is awesome, And we said, oh, really? And you give him the barrels? So when we do our next SparkCon, will you give us the barrels? So he'll do that, and sure enough, yeah. So, in fact, Joe had to do community service because of this. So his community service was working with more barrels at SparkCon and making another one, which seemed like a nice full circle, but then there was a whole nother circle of this whole thing, because later, after the second night, the barrel dinosaur was hanging out on Fayetteville Street, and it got knocked down. It got pushed down. And all of a sudden, there was what do you do? It's like someone's desecrating the art. So now the police actually apprehended the guy. And it ended up being almost the same police officer, I think it's the partner, that had gotten Joe in trouble, is now putting the other guy in trouble for tearing down the barrel monster. There's been some spin-off things that have happened. One of the really cool ones is to see what's been happening with the whole circus community. Anyone who's out there last night, it was pretty stunning to see Circus Park do a fashion show with not much apparel. But it's allowed us to do things like Maximus Circus and actually get all the people that are doing SparkCon stuff are now getting paying gigs. And that's really exciting for me to see like how that's developing and that you realize, and now there's even a circus store opening up 1 block away. And that just by the beginning, giving them a platform and allowing people to start doing this stuff, they can actually get a whole community galvanized. And SparkCon's been really great for that. So at the beginning, really what we thought we were doing was trying to, put on a festival or really talk about creativity, and that's not true. Because really all we were doing is training leaders. And SparkCon, ultimately, that's what we figured out is what we have to do. In order to keep it fresh, all we're going to do is work with new talent and pass on the skills about here's how you budget, here's how you reach out to the press, here's how you do this. Because these are all embedded people in their creative community. And as long as we do that leadership training and that leadership development, SparkCon will continue to be a cool open source mover. And I don't have to think about a festival, I have to think about training the people that are going to do that stuff. And that's been a really great realization. So I think just to come back, we sort of just saw this whole mess of things, and I thought about Wayne Taylor Sr., a professor of mine at NC State, and I just love him. Because I just remember one time he was just talking about how he's frustrated with like doing work, and he said, hell, sometimes I got to build a desk before I can write the letter, and you can't sit down at his desk until the desk is right. And it occurred to me maybe what we're doing is something similar to that. And that I think if I take those themes and sort of tie them together, that like maybe there's some level of it being a desk. And when you actually start putting that together, that maybe this desk is preparing me to do the next thing. And so I've been trying to think about what is that letter. And this is where I'm about to take a leap of faith and try to make a shoe company in Raleigh. So we'll see how that goes. And it's really scary for me, but then again, everything else before was really scary too. So we'll see what's next. Thank you, everyone.